Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 1078. The Hidden Secret. Saint of Secrets Bodhi's. Furs had experienced many things recently, to the point of being watched by a king of angels, so she didn't show any signs of abnormality. She retracted her gaze in a natural manner, and didn't slow down her pace as she walked towards the man in the black trench coat. After a few steps, they brushed past each other. Did he happen to pass by here because of the attraction between beyonder characteristics? If he knew that teacher was here, he wouldn't be so slow and would use teleport to chase after him. Luckily, teacher has already boarded the carriage and left the inn. Furz's heart calmed down, her tense mind relaxing a little. She took a few more steps forward and looked up at the sky. She wanted to confirm if it would rain later. At this moment, a raven flew over and landed on a tree along the way. It faced the spot where Furs had just passed by. Furs stopped thinking about Saint of Secrets Bodhi's as she maintained her speed and left the street. As the Aurora Order hadn't held a gathering in Backland for a long period of time, and with the target being a demigod, Furs didn't have any thoughts of seeking revenge for her teacher. Ignoring her lack of combat strength, just finding and locking onto a secret sorcerer was a nearly impossible task. It's best that I wait till I become a traveler. I might encounter Bodhi's by chance before entrusting Mr. World the corresponding mission. I'll take the time to save up money. Now, it's certain that the Aurora Order has saints in Backland. I can't eliminate the possibility that during Bodhi's travel elsewhere today, he was influenced by the attraction force of beyonder characteristic and had accidentally lost his way in Backland. Furs very naturally considered looking for the World Gehrman Sparrow's help. From what she knew, this gentleman had killed 2 demigods with his own hands, and he had only become a demigod for 3 months. In the upper echelons of the 7 churches, they only have about 10 demigods. Based on Mr. World's progress, it will take him at most 2 years to wipe out the powerhouses of a church. Of course, the real world isn't an ideal measurement. Having received higher education, Furs, who had been a surgeon, gradually let her thoughts wander. She walked to the street and boarded a rental carriage. Above the gray fog, there was a mini-gathering with the Sun Derek, the Hangman Alger, and the World Gehrman Sparrow. However, unlike before, Mr. Fool was present as the witness because the Sun's main motive was to find out which sealed artifact could please this great existence, as well as to exchange it for the cross left behind by the Creator. At the same time, he still had some questions to consult Mr. Hangman and Mr. World about, so he had applied for a private exchange. Sword of Silverdawn, Twilight Mask, Life's Cane, Fallen Flute. These were all items that have outstanding powers and negative effects, ones that require sealing. This also confirms that the City of Silver doesn't have any beyonders from the artisan pathway. All the spoils can only be formed naturally. Even with a godlike sealed artifact, they can shatter the characteristics, but they are unable to reform them in a better way. As the Fool Klein listened to Little Sun's description, he quickly analyzed the pros and cons of different sealed artifacts in his mind. The first thing he did was eliminate the Twilight Mask because the negative effects of the sealed artifact from the City of Silver's first chief were too great. Although Klein could let his marionette wear this mask and cut off the oral senses, thus avoiding the continuous howls and screams. Furthermore, he didn't have to worry about his marionette becoming a slave to the Twilight Mask. However, in that case, his actual body might become a member of the dead who died suddenly for no reason. Following that, Klein similarly gave up the Fallen Flute for the same reasons. This sealed artifact's ability to predict danger ahead of time was indeed better than the Desire Apostle and Creeping Hunger. It was alluring, but the negative effects were also not easy to avoid. If Klein used this flute with his actual body, he would gradually turn cold and lose his normal emotions. This would be completely contradictory with the concept of using humanity to battle godhood to maintain balance. And if he were to hand it over to his marionette, he would experience a significant decrease in his mental facilities and easily make mistakes. This caused him to lose his main advantage as a beyonder of the seer pathway. In addition, this flute will make the people around it give themselves up to degeneration and desires. I don't want the residents on Buckland Street to be degenerates who give up on their morals. By then, how many illegitimate children will be born? I can only consider the Sword of Silverdawn and Life's Cane. Klein mumbled silently before quickly choosing between two. The Sword of Silverdawn's head engraving seemed to have a living characteristic. To Klein, this meant that communication was possible, and as long as they could communicate, the negative effects could naturally be reduced. As for the height restriction, he could just ignore his thickness and only focus on his height. After all, this didn't affect a clown due to its extremely high sense of balance. Regarding the problem of mutation with Life's Cane, he could avoid it by handing it to his marionettes. When he lost or gained any organs, he could heal himself with flower of blood, and causing the surroundings to be filled with vitality, allowing for lush growth wasn't much of a negative effect. Since the negative effects of the two sealed artifacts weren't too serious, he had to consider their effects. The Sword of Silverdawn was clearly from a demon hunter of the warrior pathway. Be it attacks or defense, they were both potent. It could hide his malintent and be good at dealing with devils. As for Life's Cane, it was good at creating and causing mutations, which made it rather sinister. After a few seconds of consideration, when Derek asked for the answer, the fool Klein spoke unhurriedly, as though he was discussing something ordinary. The cane. In the end, he decided on Life's Cane. In fact, the Sword of Silverdawn and Life's Cane had their own pros, making it a tough decision. Klein's final decision stemmed from an uncommon reason. The sinister Life's Cane could be described as bizarre, so it could effectively aid him in acting as a bizarro sorcerer and raise his potion digestion speed. Yes, Mr. Fool, Derek replied, unable to hide his joy. This meant that when he completed the sacrificial and bestowment ritual, he would obtain the cross from the Creator. After determining this, he cast his gaze at the figure at the bottom of the long bronze table. Mr. World, other than the complete brain of an adult mind dragon, do you still need a relatively high sequence potion formula for the plantar pathway? As the secret passage of the Giant King's court was shared by the world, he became the target of Derek's question, and not Mr. Fool. Of course, to Derek, the world was Mr. Fool's blessed. His answer represented Mr. Fool's intentions to a certain extent. A relatively high sequence potion formula for the plantar pathway. Sitting at the end of the long bronze table, the fool Klein immediately had a headache and fell into an intense internal struggle. He could roughly understand what the chief of the City of Silver's thought process was. On the one hand, this experienced demon hunter hopes that he can usher in a bright future through the Giant King's court's exploration, while on the other hand, he's still cautious and doesn't hold much hope. He's prepared to continue staying in the darkness, so he mentioned the plantar potion formula to see if Mr. Fool has the corresponding authority, or rather, does the faction that he watches over have a need for it. If this could bring about certain feedback, it would effectively improve the survival of the City of Silver. Meanwhile, on Klein's end, Franklin had recently come to believe that he's just one step away from his research goals. When he becomes a druid, he should be able to succeed. This made Klein very hesitant on whether he should give him a push. I don't know what the future holds. I'll just focus on what's in front of me. A Sequence 5 Beyonder who doesn't even have godhood wouldn't be able to do anything too serious. Furthermore, Ma'am Hermit is already a demigod. It's not a big problem for her to watch out for Frank. Klein thought for a moment and let the world Gehrman Sparrow say, Sequence 5. What if there's more? Derek pressed. Klein felt like he was being tested. After a few seconds of silence, he said, If your side is willing to give it, then that works, all right. Derek didn't probe any further. Instead, he asked the person beside him, Mr. Hangman, I have a strange feeling about this. Why did the chief suddenly mention the relatively high sequence potion formula of the plantar pathway? The Hangman Alger looked at the world Gehrman Sparrow and said, This should be a test from your chief, to see if the City of Silver can change its environment. I remember you mentioning that you only know that the goddess of harvest is the Giant King's queen, and according to the records of the Sanguine from the moon, the goddess of harvest is named Omabella. Your City of Silver originally believed in her. I was originally only certain that the name Omabella was real, so I didn't have any inclination towards other explanations. Now, with your chief suddenly taking out a relatively high-sequence potion formula that you didn't know before, this makes me suspect that the moon is right. This means that your city of silver hid the fact that they once believed in the goddess of harvest. They even deliberately didn't mention her true name. There must be a huge secret behind this. A huge secret. Derek thought seriously but couldn't think of any secret. Fortunately, this wasn't an important matter to him. He quickly ended the private conversation and returned to the City of Silver to prepare for the exchange of sealed artifacts.